Welcome to Not That Girl Anymore, part of the Liminal Network. I'm your host, Dawn Bouillon. This is more than a podcast. It's a sisterhood. We're reclaiming our voices, our worth, and our lives. One story, one truth, one brave step at a time. Hey, friends. Welcome back to Not That Girl Anymore. I'm your host, Dawn Bouillon, trauma therapist and coach, and a founder here of Embrace Your Brave. And today I am starting a 3-part series that I'm calling When Love Becomes Control. Understanding Psychological Abuse. And in this series, we're going to talk about how psychological abuse actually works, how it affects the brain and the body, and why so many strong women end up trapped in these dynamics. And most importantly, how we can heal. So just from the start, I just want to say, if you've ever struggled with trying to explain what happened to you, or if you've ever said, it's not that bad, I just completely lost myself. Or if you've ever wondered, why is it so hard to leave? Or why you still feel so impacted even after you did, then this episode is for you. So part 1, today I want to talk about something that really doesn't get enough attention when we talk about abuse, and that is the psychological layering, which is really the engine behind what we now call coercive control. And this is not about weakness, and it's not about being naive. This is about what happens when a human nervous system is slowly trained to survive inside of someone else's control. And this term coercive control, I think many are unaware of, or we miss it all together as abuse. Because many people still only think of abuse as yelling, hitting, obvious cruelty. But many of the women that I work with, and honestly parts of my own story, don't look like that on the outside. Instead, it looks like constant self-doubt, or walking on eggshells, or shrinking yourself, or over-explaining, trying harder and harder to be better. And from the outside, it looks like, but he loves you, or your church seems so kind, or your boss says you're amazing. But yet on the inside, you feel trapped, confused, disconnected from yourself. That's where coercive control lives. It's not one big explosive moment, but in a system of psychological tactics, they stack on top of each other over time. That's the psychological layering that we're talking about. So what is this? What does this mean? It means it's not just one behavior. It's many. It's many subtle tactics happening at the same time, each one reinforcing the other until you're living inside a reality that someone else controls. And each tactic alone might feel survivable, or maybe explainable, or maybe even forgivable. But together, they create a cage that you can't see. And eventually, you don't just follow their rules. You start policing yourself. And that is the goal of coercive control. And this is where I really want to kind of pause for a minute, because I hear this from the women that I sit with all the time. But Dawn, I chose to stay. I chose to keep trying. I chose that relationship. And I just want to say this so gently, but yet so clearly. When someone is living inside coercive control, they're not making free choices in the way what that usually means about choice. Because real choice requires access to accurate information, emotional safety, freedom from punishment, okay? And the ability to say no without consequences. In coercive control, all of those things are slowly taken away. So yeah, you might have made decisions, but you were making them inside a system that was designed to distort reality, threaten your safety, and make your own independence feel dangerous. That, my friend, is not a free choice. That is survival inside of the cage. And when women say, I chose it, what I usually hear is a woman taking responsibility for something that should never have been hers to carry. So I just want to challenge you in thinking about that. Did you really have a choice? Do you really have a choice? Are there consequences that you know about and are afraid of? So let's talk about the first layer of the psychological layering that we're talking about. And that's gaslighting, which is controlling your reality. And this can look like, but that's not what I meant, or you're remembering it wrong, or you're just too sensitive, or why do you always make things a big deal? And over time, what that does is you stop trusting your gut. You stop trusting your own memory. You stop trusting your own eyes. You start asking other people, am I crazy for feeling this way? And this is not just something that's emotional. It's neurological. Your brain is trying to survive by outsourcing reality to the person who feels safer than your own uncertainty. And when you can't trust your own reality, it becomes almost impossible to make clear choices. Because now you're not choosing between healthy and unhealthy. You're choosing between keeping the peace or being blamed, between staying connected or being alone and punished. Those aren't real choices. Those are coerced options. And I'm just thinking, I can think of so many women in this position right now, and this is what they're faced with. And it's so confusing. And you want to say, but this is what I want, or this is what I asked for. But you've been conditioned to think that way. These ideas have been put into your head, and you think that they're yours now, but they're deeply harmful to you. The second layer is what we call intermittent reinforcement, which is the same mechanism that creates addiction. Okay. So it's love, right? And then cruelty. And then the, oh, I'm so sorry, I'll never do it again, the apology. And then you lower your guard and you get close again. And the cycle just continues. And you get just enough good moments to keep you hopeful. And your brain starts chasing it. And you think, well, if I just say it right, or if I just try harder, or if I just don't upset them. And this is what creates the trauma bond. It's not because you're attached to the person, but because your nervous system is attached to the cycle. And then the hope you have for the good stuff becomes the hook that keeps you stuck. And hope is not stupid, okay? Hope is human. But in these moments, it becomes what keeps you in bondage. So that is the trauma bond, right? It's the intermittent reinforcement. It's the where we are constantly chasing for the little bit of good that we can get out of this. And that's why it's so confusing, because some moments you get good, but then you get really, really bad. And so it confuses our nervous system and we get attached to it and we get stuck. The next layer is what I call identity erosion, which over time, you just hear so much criticism of your character, or insults about your intelligence, or comments about your emotions being too much, and jokes that don't feel like jokes. And slowly, the question shifts from, what do I want, to how do I not mess this up? How do I start shrinking myself? How do I start shrinking my voice? And we slowly, without even realizing it, that's what we do. We shrink ourselves. We shrink our voice. We shrink our dreams. We shrink our needs. And this is where women start saying things like, I don't even know who I am anymore. I used to be so confident, and now I don't recognize myself. I feel invisible. And that is not accidental. That's control. That's the purpose. That's the goal. Okay? For you to completely lose you. And the fourth layer is isolation, okay? It doesn't always mean you're locked in your house. It means the tension that you get every time you try to see your family. or your friends, or the drama around friendships, making you feel bad for having friends, making you feel bad for hanging out with other people, or guilt when you spend time with people who empower you. Now, that's an interesting one. I've seen that happen with a lot of my friends too. They start being made feel guilty when they spend time with me because I'm building them up and empowering them, and then I become a threat to the system. So start paying attention to that, right? Be mindful of that. And sometimes it's subtle and sometimes it's spiritual and sometimes it's emotional, but the result is the same. The person controlling you becomes your primary emotional reference point. And now leaving doesn't just mean losing a relationship. It means losing your entire sense of safety and belonging. That's deep, right? You feel like you're doing something wrong when you leave. And the next layer is what we call fear conditioning. And this is where the nervous system gets really trained by fear. And this can look like rage, silent treatment, withdrawing affection from you, unpredictable moods. And your body starts to learn safety equals compliance. If I'm compliant, I can stay safe. So you start scanning and overthinking and anticipating, and not because you're anxious, but because your body is doing its job. This is survival. It's reading it correctly. So when people say, why didn't you just leave? What they're really asking is, why didn't you override the survival system that was trying to keep you safe? Your body wasn't choosing comfort. Your body was choosing what felt safest in the moment. And that matters. I want us to grasp this. I want you to grasp this if you're a survivor. I want you to grasp this if you're a friend of a survivor. People aren't choosing to stay in this. They're choosing to stay alive. They're choosing safety, okay? And their body is trying so desperately to keep them safe. And another layer is what I call moral or spiritual control. In religious environments, coercive control often uses God language, okay? I've seen this so many times. God hates divorce, which is a scripture completely taken out of context, used to abuse, okay? You need to forgive more. Very damaging and minimizing of our pain. Where your role is to submit, okay? More lies that come from what I call shitty theology, or don't touch God's anointed. Any of these things sound familiar to you? And what happens with this shift when religion is used to control is now it's not just risky to leave. Now it feels sinful to leave. And you protecting yourself starts to feel like selfishness because that's what you've been conditioned to think. And boundaries start feeling like rebellion. And that is the psychological captivity at a soul level. So psychological layering is dangerous because it doesn't look like abuse. It looks like and feels like confusion. It doesn't leave bruises. It leaves identity loss, which can be far more damaging and painful. It doesn't require constant force because eventually you control yourself for them. They don't have to do a thing. You've already been conditioned to comply. And the longer it goes on, the more your nervous system believes, I can't survive without them, even when your mind knows something is terribly wrong. And this is where I want to speak directly to anyone who's ever thought, why didn't I leave sooner? Why'd I put up with this for so long? Your brain is not failing you. Your brain is operating exactly as it was designed to. It's trying to keep you alive inside of a system that punished independence and rewarded compliance. And when survival is on the line, the brain does not prioritize freedom. It prioritizes connection and safety. And that's just human biology. Leaving requires your nervous system to believe safety is possible again, and that takes time, support, and healing. So let's talk about healing, because there's always got to be hope in this, and I fully believe that you can heal. But healing starts when you begin trusting your own perceptions again. When you start listening to your body, you get reconnected and you're listening to your body and you're honoring it. And you begin choosing relationships where fear is not the price of connection. And in the next episode, we're going to talk about how coercive control actually rewires the nervous system. And that's why healing has to involve the body, not just your thoughts. Because understanding what happened is powerful. But understanding how to heal is where freedom really begins. And so we've covered a lot today. And if you're telling yourself, Dawn, I should have known better, I chose this, I let this happen, I want you to hear me clearly. You did not consent to being controlled. You did not agree to have your reality slowly taken away. You did not sign up to lose yourself in order to keep the peace. You were responding to a situation that was designed to limit your options and make leaving feel dangerous. And that changes the story completely. You were not weak for staying. You were surviving, and we celebrate that. You were not dramatic. You were responding to psychological captivity. And you are not broken for still feeling the impact. Your nervous system learned what it had to do to keep you alive. But you are allowed to heal now. You are allowed to choose yourself now. You are allowed to build a life that does not require you to disappear to keep the peace. You are not that girl anymore. And you never have to be that girl anymore. So just take this in, guys. Psychological layering is one of the most dangerous tactics because it's so many things pushed into one at the same time, reinforcing one another and confusing you and keeping you in bondage. You're not crazy. So come back next week and we will start talking about the impact on the nervous system, the brain, and how we can heal. I'm excited to tell you about some things I've been seeing with my own clients that's really been helping them heal. So thank you so much for just being here with us today. And remember, you're not that girl anymore. Hey friend, just a quick note. I am a licensed therapist, but this podcast isn't therapy. It's not meant to diagnose or treat anything. It's here to offer you support, encouragement, and real conversation. If you're struggling, please reach out to a trusted professional. You are not alone, and you are so worthy of healing. Even if your voice shakes, keep using it. Your healing matters. If you're ready to go deeper, you can book a session by clicking the link in the show notes or visiting our website, embraceyourbrave.org, to learn more about our therapy and trauma-informed coaching options. Let's explore how we can walk this journey together. You are not alone. Embrace your brave, sis. You're not that girl anymore.